Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish review. In today's Doctor Who Big Finish review I'll be taking a look at this, Masterful, the 50th anniversary Big Finish way of celebrating 50 years of the good old Master. So I've decided to split this video up into three parts, the first part being the actual review of Masterful, the story itself, then the second part being Terror of the Master, the exclusive audiobook what is exclusive to the limited edition. And then part 3 will be the two Master short trips sort of feature within this limited edition. So the way this video is going to work is I'm going to take a look at the presentation of the limited edition release, then go on to my thoughts on Masterful, and then my concluding thoughts on Masterful. You know, is it a good celebration of 50 years of the Master? So without further ado, let's dive right into the presentation. So taking a look at the limited edition cover art for the Masterful release, so we've got the various Masters there, the Gallifreyan symbols there, then Doctor Who, Masterful, and the back release there, so if you want to know more about the story then do feel free to pause, and then what's included within the actual set, and then we have my limited edition number there. Having the slipcase, we are greeted with the what's on each disc there, so on discs 1 to 3 we have Masterful by James Goss, and then we have the cast list there. And of course we have cast photos of the people involved recording Masterful itself. Then on disc 4 we have the short trips, we have I Am the Master by Geoffrey Beevers and The Switching by Simon Gurrier. And on discs 5 to 7 we have Terror of the Master by Trevor Baxendale, which is exclusive to the limited edition Masterful release there, then with a bio on the story there if you want to check that out. And there we have the disc art for all 8 discs what feature in the limited edition Masterful release. Masterful by James Goss. Now Big Finish's special release celebrating 50 years of the Doctor's Moriarty, the Master, and even was released on the anniversary of Terror of the Autumn. So that was a lovely little touch. So if that doesn't sound enticing, well, we have John Sim joining Big Finish for this special story. And I have to say that John Sim knocks out the park straight away. So what about the story itself? Is it a masterpiece? Absolutely. I think that this story is wonderful. I think James Goss has created a masterful story balancing the different Masters, and one thing what I love is how this story incorporates Big Finish's own original Masters in the mix too. So it does feel like a perfect celebration of the character of the Master through his various forms. So the way the story is sort of presented is presented in a 3-part hour-long story. So let's take a closer look at those 3 parts themselves. Part 1, we begin on a desolate world with a rather grand castle where we're introduced to our first 2 Masters, Geoffrey Beevers, the Crispy Master, and Milo Parker's Master, who are pretty suspicious with them being time-scooped here. So who has sent them to this castle? You know, the castle itself is carved in sort of black obsidian and black marble and black drapes, a very Master type of interior design. So we get some good fun moments with them sort of killing the various bioform butlers, with Beevers' Master saying, you know, killing people eases the pain what he gets from being all crispy, as he wants people to suffer the same agony what he does, which is really chilling stuff. Then it comes to their attention, but it seems to be a dinner party. And who could devise such a devilish dinner party? Is it the Rani or the terrible Zodin? So enter our next set of Masters, the McQueen Master, and Leanie's Master, who is actually Chameleon, and Eric Roberts' Master, who all seem to be overthinking things until the War Master arrives and takes charge of the investigations, with him examining the wine, which if you've listened to the story you'll know is a nice little bit of foreshadowing with it in the actual story itself. I love how the War Master instantly takes charge and owns the room, saying that, you know, the others don't have the stomach for it when they look into his eyes. You know, the other Masters are quite horrified. But our mysterious host reveals himself to be the John Sim Master, because he's finally done it. He's actually beaten the Doctor by throwing her into a star. So that's a nice little reference to Jodie's Doctor, because Big Finish to have the license right up until Twice Upon a Time, or it could be a future incarnation, but it's kind of nice to think that it's Jodie in a way. And now the universe is under his control, and he wants to have a big old party to celebrate, wanting the other Masters to help rule the universe with him, and there's a literal mic drop. This is one thing what I adore about Masterful and James Goss's scripts, is that how funny and witty they are, but there's some good amounts of sort of humour throughout the whole story, and you know, little references what fans will get an absolute delight out of. And definitely put a smile on your face with some of the little Easter eggs that are included within Masterful itself. But someone is missing as another guest arrives, but not the Master you're expecting. It is of course Joe Grant, because it turns out Delgado's Master didn't really fancy getting time scooped, so he pushed poor old Joe Grant into the time scoop, as the Doctor and the Brigadier were trying to stop the Master in the Tower of London, which sounds like a very interesting story. So James Goss, please write that story. And poor old Joe, bless her, she thinks that all the other Masters are Time Lords and they're here to put the Master on trial. And what I think's really nice is, though this is the 50th anniversary sort of celebration of the Master, it's also Joe's anniversary, so it feels only right to have Joe, the first companion to face the Master on screen, which is really cool. And I absolutely love that moment when Joe realises that she's surrounded by all these various other incarnations of the Master, just for sheer horror. It's a beautifully played scene, leading to all the Masters arming themselves to kill her, except the Milo Parker Master, as he doesn't quite agree with it. Luckily for Joe, a mysterious figure arrives in a terrible disguise, which is a lovely little wink and nod to Anthony Ainley's sort of ropey disguises, with the Ainley Master saying, "Oh, not even my disguise was that bad." But who is this mysterious figure? It is of course Missy, the drunk aunt, has turned up to the party. So this feels like a really great continuation from the dynamic we see in The Doctor Falls, with Sim's Master's sort of disdain towards Missy, and and him not wanting to regenerate into Missy. And this sort of all stemmed from him not wanting to become Missy, meant that he wanted to rule the universe, and this is sort of a continuation from that. But Missy has other ideas and sort of destroys John Sim's Master's plan with saying basically he wants to steal the other's Master's life energy so he doesn't become Missy. But there's this sort of strange entity creature what has followed Missy, leading them all to time scoop away, as we see Beaver's Master ends up sort of washed ashore on a planet, meeting somebody called Kitty, with Beaver's Master now called Jeremy, and McQueen's Master arrives on a refugee ship and gets locked in a stationary cupboard, leading to quite a funny scene with him arguing with a robot, where we see the War Master end up on sort of a Mad Max world with an apocalypse looming, but he's rather curious about this mysterious barrier, and Joe and Chameleon arrive on a jungle planet covered in ruins. And this is the part of the story where it really uses Chameleon to his advantage, because we see Chameleon turn into the Third Doctor to comfort Joe, because Joe's very sort of in disbelief that the Doctor's actually dead. So I think that's quite a good way of sort of exploring that, and we see Joe and Chameleon, or the Third Doctor, go to explore the mystery of this jungle planet. Whereas Missy ends up meeting with the Unbound Master Mark Gatiss, with some quite flirty scenes, and James Goss has cleverly used sort of Doctor Who sort of lines and slightly altered them, sort of Doctor Who quotes to sort of mimic their sort of flirting, which is rather fun. And a good little touch, do I have the right to, touch these two lips together, stuff like that, which is a lot of fun. But they both join forces because of the entity creature, what is devouring whole universes, and they wanted to put a stop to it. We go back to good old Jeremy and Kitty, as Jeremy has a perception filter to hide his crispy form. So we learn a bit more about the barrier and what, Kitty's been exiled. But throughout the story we see sort of Jeremy and Kitty sort of get very used to their sort of domesticated life. But things aren't looking too good for McQueen's Master, as the ship is now removing oxygen to save supply, as the ship is now going to take 65 years to reach its destination, leading to McQueen's Master revelling in the idea of being a dead body in a cupboard, stopping people being able to get pens and various things out of the cupboard, and confusing archaeologists in years to come. Why is this a mysterious body in a cupboard? But we go back to Joe and Chameleon on their little adventure, and they encounter the wave entity, leading to a very dramatic ending. Part 2, a very action-packed start with an actual cliffhanger, with Missy joining forces with Joe, and Joe becoming Missy's companion, as Missy wants to see why the Doctor keeps little pets around. And I like how this story plays with the Series 10 Missy, of that sort of good nature, can she be good? So off they continue to investigate this world, whereas the War Master is busy testing the barrier, using sort of the human survivors as guinea pigs, as he wants to go inside the barrier. And Chameleon joins forces with the Gatiss Master to follow the creature, and McQueen, on the other hand, is a little bit busy, as he's starting a revolution after escaping his little cupboard, saying that the ship has only enough food for another 127 days, as we're only served one cracker a day, and the journey should only take a month, but it's scheduled for 65 years. So who's this mysterious captain? So McQueen begins his sort of rebellion, as he wants to get the captain's attention, and good old Jeremy and Kitty are in their domesticated bliss, but that soon shatters when Eric Roberts' Master appears, and let's say Jeremy isn't too happy about that. So Sim's Master comes back into the fold as he joins up with the War Master, as we find out what's wrong with this world, as we sort of explore how Sim took control of this sort of world and how it sort of backfired, as we see the creature appear, and we sort of know that the War Master wants to save this world, which is rather interesting. Now this part does have a fun little surprise cameo from the Lumiat, which I'm not going to spoil if you don't know, but she wants to steal Missy's regenerations to make a good incarnation of the Master, but Joe has other ideas about that. She's like, no, Missy's capable of being good, so in a way Joe saves Missy's life in a way, which is really nice. So Joe and Missy venture to this library, and McQueen finds out who's in charge of this ship. And this is the part when all the little Master stories start to link and you start to see how it all fits together like a jigsaw. So it's really nice to see how all these different segments of the Master story all tie into one big story, which is really cool. And the cliffhanger for this story with Missy and Joe is one of the most bizarre yet fun cliffhangers out there, because it's got a real great twist involving the library, and all I'm going to say is it involves the fan show. That is all I'm going to say, and I absolutely love it. Part 3, we have a very bleak start from the sort of more comedic ending of Part 2, with Gatiss' Master destroying Gallifrey and becoming the president to stop the creature, whereas McQueen's Master has managed to take over the refugee ship and is now taking charge in improved conditions. But there are these mysterious prison camps. You know, if people speak out against him as captain, then he will send them to a prison camp. But that's quite a grim revelation within the actual story, because the people who don't obey him, well, let's say they become, you know, batteries to power the ship itself, which is rather bleak in a way. So this part is when we learn about the actual creature itself, and the War Master is busy, you know, trying to save this planet, whereas Chameleon is rounding up other Masters. So he rounds up Sims, the Eric Roberts Master and Milo Parker's Master, as Chameleon wants to stop Missy, which Sim's Master is quite delighted about, because, you know, he's not really a big fan of Missy. But let's say that sort of backfires, whereas the surviving Masters, the Jacoby, Beavers and McQueen Master, all sort of recount for what difference they made in their little bit of story, and sort of see what Missy did as well. And this is when we sort of get the revelation of what Missy was planning, what Missy's motives was, and what she was up to the whole time this was going on, as we return to the castle. The entropy creature has devoured all the universe, and now it's coming home back to the castle. So the Masters have to unite to stop this entropy creature, and the War Master has other ideas about the Masters all uniting together to become this big force. So the War Master definitely is the victor within this story, and probably is the main Master. Now the ending itself is quite an interesting one. You do have to pay attention to it, because the ending, if you just listen to it, it might not seem all very clear, but if you've paid attention you'll notice little references on how the story actually ends, because it's got a little, you know, hints throughout the whole story of how this story's got to end. And I think on re-listen the ending didn't seem as abrupt, because, you know, there are clues throughout the whole of part 3 of how this story is going to end. So I think if you've paid attention to this story, then you'll definitely, you know, you'll definitely won't feel underwhelmed by the ending. But I can see if you've just listened to it, you can see that it might seem a little bit abrupt, but for me the ending was, you know, just the perfect way of, you know, ending a multi-master story for me personally. So I'm going to do something a little bit different from my normal Big Finish reviews. I normally talk about the characters, but, you know, it's just the Master really, and they all have the same sort of compliments. But Derek Jacobi definitely is the star of the show, and I love the addition of Katie Manning and Missy's dynamic and how it sort of expands on Series 10 a bit more. John Sims, wonderful, and giving Jeffrey Beaver something a little bit different to do, that sort of domesticated life. And the Milo Parker Master I really did enjoy, but I think this is one of my little criticisms with this story actually, is that certain Masters like the Eric Roberts Master and the Milo Parker Master, and a little bit of Gatiss in a way, they don't really get a chance to shine as much as the other Masters. They're sort of the sidelined Masters. You know, the main Master you're really following is probably Derek Jacobi and Missy in a way. I feel like those are the main Masters what feature within this story. And McQueen, you know, it's good to hear Alex McQueen's Master, because I really do love Alex McQueen. I think that he's absolutely joyous. So let's go on to my overall thoughts. I think that Masterful is full of brilliant character interaction, seeing how the different pairings of the Master work and how they get on. And this does seem like a very good continuation of, you know, the Series 10 Master and Missy stuff. The music has a wonderful, creepy, ethereal feel to it, but when we get the great sort of action moments, we get this sort of great sort of rock music within there, which is wonderful. And I feel like this is a perfect way of celebrating 50 years of the Master, and it's nice to have Joe in there. It's genuinely a fun, witty script with lovely little references and a nice little nod to Terrence Dicks. And of course for Target books, you know, this genuinely does feel like a love letter to the Master, and I had a lot of fun. I think that this, for a 3-hour story, just flies by. You know, the story just cleverly interlinks, and I think that it is just a really good story. But like I said, my main criticism for this is that how certain Masters are sort of left and sort of sidelined. You know, I get that you've got to try and balance it, but it does seem a little bit unequal in certain places. But I definitely do really enjoy Masterful. I think that the story ended on such a perfect way to end a multi-Master story. So I'm going to give Masterful a well-deserved 8.5 out of 10. It's a lot of fun. I definitely do recommend it. I definitely do recommend getting the limited edition one just for the exclusive audiobook Terror of the Master. But you can get Masterful as a standard edition CD if you just want to experience Masterful. And I definitely do recommend it. I think that it is a good way of celebrating 50 years of the Master. It's a great sort of celebration of the Master as a character. Wonderful references will make any fan smile. And it's just glorious to have Alex McQueen back, because I love Alex McQueen's Master. Derek Jacobi is definitely the star of the release, and John Sim, you know, this being his first Big Finish release, just absolutely sells it. He's wonderful as that sort of maniac Master. I really do like that. And all the Masters do a fantastic job, and John Coleshaw does a brilliant job playing all the various characters that he does within this release. So thank you very much for watching my review of Masterful. I'll see you next time for more Big Finish related content, so please do like and subscribe for more Doctor related content, and I'll see you next time. So thank you very much, and goodbye.